Hello there, welcome back to the Once a Week Kitchen. Today I'm going to make some buns, and they are so good, and this is such a reliable recipe that I call them best ever buns. Right, best ever buns. Making these buns for a bring and buy sale for the elderly residents where I work as a cook. So this is an old recipe that belonged to my mother-in-law, and it's never ever failed me. It's more or less foolproof. So in the bowl I've got a pound of caster sugar, a pound of margarine, and a little capful of vanilla essence. I've got 6 eggs and 1 pound 4 ounces of self-raising flour, and then I've got various bits and pieces to trim the buns afterwards, decorate them: cherries, currants, and 6 tablespoonfuls of milk. That is part of the recipe as well. So start by creaming the margarine and sugar, which is much easier if you do it with a mixer. Start off slow at first. Right, we'll get the mixer up to full speed now and give it a really good cream until it's light and fluffy. Right, the mixture's light and fluffy now, so I'm going to add the eggs 2 at a time. This mixture will make 60 buns. So we'll whisk that in. Another scrape. Right, I'll just pop a teaspoonful of flour in with those 2 eggs just to stop it curdling. One last whisk. Right, that's it now for the mixer. So we're going to pop the flour in through a sieve. Just to make sure there are no lumps. This is self-raising flour, by the way. stage I'm going to use a knife and just fold that in. So this is a more careful procedure, folding. You don't want to knock out all the air that you've just so carefully whisked in. So it's just a folding action. Right, the last ingredient now is 6 tablespoonfuls of milk. I'm going to stir that in very carefully. So this makes a lovely soft mixture. This is what they call a drop-in consistency. Which means you'll pick up a spoonful of it, it drops like that. That's what they mean by a drop-in consistency. So I'm going to do 20 butterfly buns, 20 iced buns and 20 currant buns. So I'm going to bake 40 plain first of all, and then I'll add the currants to the last third. So we just want a teaspoonful, dessert spoons really, of this mixture into the bun tins, just so that they're about 2/3 full. And I've got the oven set at 200 centigrade, which is 400 Fahrenheit, gas mark 6. And we're just going to bake them in batches until we've got 40 plain ones, and then I shall make the rest of the mixture into currant buns. Very, very good, reliable recipe, very old. As I say, it's probably more than 100 years old, this recipe, and it stood the test of time. In fact, I can't think why I've never put this on YouTube before. I've been making these buns all my life. I wish I had £1 for every one of these buns I've made. I'd be a very rich lady. These are going into the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. And I will try not to open the oven door for the first 10 minutes at least. Right, the mixture I was making earlier has made 54 buns. So I've got half of them which I'm going to ice, and the other half I'm going to make into butterfly buns, because I forgot to add in the currants earlier. So they're all plain, no problem, we'll ice half of them and butterfly the rest. So mix some icing sugar to a paste with water. Now it needs to be quite stiff so that the icing doesn't actually run off the buns. So what I do is just spread a little bit on like that in a circle, and just half a cherry. You've got to wait till the buns have cooled right down before you can do this. And when you're mixing your icing sugar, add the water in, a tablespoonful at a time, because if it's very easy to make it too runny, and then it just all dribbles down everywhere before it gets a chance to set. So we'll continue on in this way until all these buns are iced. So there we go, we've got 26 iced buns now. So now we're going to move on to the butterfly buns. Right, now for the butterfly buns. Just take a sharp knife and cut sort of a well out of the top of each bun, and then cut that well in that top in half. So we'll just do half a dozen, and then I can show you the finished result. So what we do here, we need jam and cream. So a little bit of jam in each bun. I'm using strawberry jam, but it doesn't matter. Whichever jam you happen to have plenty of. Just sort of half a teaspoonful. Then your whipped cream, which is your whipped double cream here, on top. Plonk it on top of the jam. So what we do now, we take the two halves of the top and we stick them into the cream with the straight edges facing outwards like a butterfly. And that's why they're called butterfly buns. So stick them in. That, and then what we do, we take a teaspoonful of icing sugar into a sieve and just dredge it over the top. Just a little dredge like that. And there you go, butterfly buns done. So it is a little bit fiddly, but they do look wonderful when you put them all out on display to sell, and people just snap them up and enjoy them, and it's just so well worth the effort. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.